Yo, hey Hoopheads, welcome to the weekly Hoopla, where I get you caught up on all the need to knows of the NBA. Before I start, of course, thank you again for watching. If you enjoy the content, give it a thumbs up. It does help a little bit more than you might think. But now that all the corporate crap's out of the way, let's move on to it. Be honest with you, this isn't going to be very long at all. It's the All-Star break. Basketball games concluded Thursday night. And then you've basically had just all your little fun all-star events. I think games pick back up on this Wednesday. So there really won't be a lot to have actually happened in the standings. Hopefully no injuries, things like that. But there's a little bit of stuff that I wanted to cover and talk about today, and then tease everything else moving into the future. So it's All-Star break. Enjoy some time with your family. Enjoy some video games, a book. Go out and walk around, do some shit. If you're a big NBA nerd and you're really into the grind of the season, this is a very important moment for you to take a damn break. Just saying. All right, moving into injuries first. Just a quick batch here. We have the Miami Heat. We're just going to bring them up as a roster right now. We're actually going to start. We're going to bookend this thing with the Miami Heat for the most part today. So we're going to start with Terry Rozier. There is a sprained knee that took place. It was a primetime game. It was earlier this week. See, I'm already on All-Star. My brain's already checked out of what happened literally days ago. But either way, Terry Rozier, sprained knee. It's going to be a week-to-week evaluation period. So essentially, you're adding a lot more chemistry issues to what Miami's going to be going forward with into this playoff period. Now, they made an interesting move that we'll finish the show with. That might help this a little bit, but it only really buys it time. And then again, you're looking at a situation where poor Terry Rozier is going to have to kind of come out of nowhere and get right quickly with a probably with a bum knee to some extent, and then still not quite having understood all of this stuff about the team, the chemistry aspects, where everybody likes things. So again, the Miami Heat are going to have chemistry issues going into the playoffs. But again, nobody probably cares too much. Likewise, they also lost Josh Richardson out with a couple of weeks with a shoulder dislocation. Not sure what that's actually going to end up looking like. And as we move forward, Josh Richardson had done a great job of, I think, finding himself again in Miami, probably getting started on a path that's going to keep him with the Heat for a good portion of his career, because he's probably as useful of a player there as he is to anybody. So you're happy to see his career get back on the right foot. But unfortunately, this does look like it's going to be something that's going to keep him out for a good portion of the finale of this season. But again, nothing that's going to keep them out for the playoffs. And of course, that's when we're really worried about the Miami Heat. Sasha Vezenkov of the Sacramento Kings, he's going to have some ankle issues. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks at this point. And this is mostly just to help him heal an ankle that's been sort of consistently a problem this season. I like Vezenkov a lot. I didn't necessarily love him for Sacramento because you're, again, not adding defensive value to a roster that needs significant defensive improvements. And I'm not being a dick here when I say I am interested to watch them over this period to see if their team defense is better. I'm not blaming it all on this thing. I'm not doing the European guys can't play defense thing. I'm just saying this guy physically doesn't look like he has the elite physical skills defensively to be a contributor on that end. And they have so many other issues that are around the same issue. I mean, one of your best defenders is a small point guard, and I don't mean Fox. I mean, you're talking about Davion Mitchell here, where, his premier defense is what he got to the NBA on, but he's still completely outmatched in a lot of his games, which is more obvious. Is something we talked about when he was when he was getting drafted. But at this point, you're just kind of looking at this roster and you don't see where the defense. Anyway, I'm on a tangent. And this is about Vezenkov's injury here. I just worry about their team defense. I worry about the Kings staying competitive with this thick group of Western Conference. The top 10 in the Western Conference is pretty locked in. It feels like, with Utah sort of not starting to take a step back. It feels like maybe taking a step back. So I think that for the Kings, this is unfortunate, but it's a very interesting thing because part of me wanted them to move Vezenkov at the deadline with something else to add a defensive piece, because I think Vezenkov can be a really useful player to somebody, like very, very useful. I mean, he's a very successful European career here. Not a scrub player at all, but I do think that he doesn't help Sacramento. Therefore, they don't help him. And in this situation, it'll be interesting to see. Of course, if he gets back healthy, this team figures things out. Then you've got, some nice scoring prowess coming off the bench into the playoffs, but then he's not been around for our playoffs. So but honestly, maybe our playoffs are more. Honestly, some of these European guys probably would enjoy our playoffs a little bit more than what they have to deal with in the regular season. But we will see. Dyson Daniels of the New Orleans Pelicans has got a meniscus tear. I was thinking this one was done for the season. I've probably got a meniscus tear. I guess I can still play basketball to some extent, but I definitely don't play it at this level. So good luck to Dyson. It's going to be a 4-week timeline somehow on this. That's pretty incredible. He's a young kid, a hell of an athlete, so I'm not that surprised. But I still kind of question why the Pelicans would want to rush this back if they do. But with the 4-week timeline, you're looking at a late March restart. So you have basically 2 weeks, more or less, to get this guy playing basketball before it's time for the playoffs. And the Pelicans should be in the playoff race. I don't see them falling out of it. So it'll be interesting because I think Dyson was going to be a guy who got minutes and was going to be a guy who mattered a lot to potentially saving them. I mean, think about the fact that CJ McCollum is such a good offensive player, but there might be times where he needs to be benched. And Dyson Daniels is sort of the hope there that this could be the answer in that scenario. But now he's going to have more issues than just not being an experienced player. Either way, we'll see how that goes with the Pelicans. I do think that's notable. So I brought that into the conversation here. And then our final injury I want to talk about, not a long injury, but it is an interesting one as far as some of the other things we're going to discuss in the quick hitters, which is basically all the rest I have for the show. 7 to 10 days for Onyeka Okongwu of the Atlanta Hawks. I think this is significant for one particular reason. The Hawks had sort of gotten a little bit of gusto back after the deadline or a little before the deadline, where it became a little more clear that they weren't going to move DeJounte Murray. And so you kind of like, okay, this team maybe is happier. Jalen Johnson's healthy again. Let's play some basketball. We're not playing defense here, but we can score. So screw it. Let's go run some track meets. And they've been fine, doing pretty well, if anything, with that strategy of late. But unfortunately, I think this one, the 7 to 10 day injury, which isn't the worst thing in the world. It's All-Star break. That takes a big chunk of that. I do wonder though if this kind of helps slim their roster down enough where we start to see Atlanta for make sure those assets are nice. Of course, we'll get into all the other rumors surrounding the Hawks as I dip into the quick hitters here. But an interesting little injury, just a small one, but a notable one because of the timing. Again, it is All-Star break, so maybe Onyeka doesn't even miss much of the time at all. And, the impact there is still a little questionable, but with Capella out, I think this has been a nice opportunity. All right. He sips to get ready for a very simple, very, very easy quick hitters section today. No rumors, no trades, no nothing. Boring day, a boring week in the NBA world by comparison to its usual craziness, which is actually funny when I look at the highlights of what I'm about to talk here, because it was still pretty notable week. Number one thing, we're going to talk about All-Star Weekend. We're going to talk about the events. We're talking about everything. I'm recording on a Sunday morning. I've seen a lot of what's happened. I haven't seen the game tonight, obviously. So we'll just wrap all of that up in the regular pod with the guys, where we'll kind of kick around All-Star weekends, how much people love them, how much the athletes love them, incentives around them. The Athletic had a really interesting poll that I'll link below that I think will kind of be the point, like kind of the thing that really we highlight the most. Is some of the conversation around this is very interesting from a fan's perspective of what they value with the All-Star weekends from all the sports, not just the NBA. So we'll get into all of that. I need you guys to show up. Sorry about the Bluetooth speaker that sounded like R2D2 just walked into my room, if you heard that. Adam Silver, he does a press conference a couple times a year. Well, he schedules them. Sometimes they come up unexpectedly, but the ones that they're regular scheduled programming ones. All-Star Weekend is a big one. It's a good time for big questions to get asked to the big boss. And we have 3 quick notes here from Adam's conversations that I found very interesting, and I think that are worth noting as NBA fans moving forward. Well, one of them isn't that interesting. It's just to sort of help you guys understand what's going on here. The first thing we'll talk about is the G League Ignite. Unfortunately, the G League Ignite are terrible again. Unfortunately, the prospects again have seen their value drop. Although yesterday's All-Star Weekend might have helped that, or Friday night might have helped that in a weird way. And the NIL is a big part of this conversation. Adam talked about all of those things when asked about the G League Ignite. They are reassessing it officially. I'm not sure what that means moving forward. We will talk about the G League in a little bit, but I am a little curious to see what that exactly means. Does this just mean Vegas gets a regular G League team and we start dispersing these kids around, allowing them still to take this path, but not necessarily all be on one program, which honestly doesn't seem like I get where the Ignite was a smart thought. But I do think that maybe it's fine for them to be drafted and put into markets if you're going to have them be a part of the NBA, or at least to some extent figure out local markets for these kids, something, like if it's a DFW kid, can they not play for the Legends? Is it, you know what I mean? Is it that big a deal to have them in these environments? I mean, do you not have the G League I've worked with the G League, so I understand it's not the highest, brow organizations of the world, but there's good people working on good product in this league. It's not that bad. I definitely don't think that the basketball's a little interesting, but that's a whole nother conversation to be had. So that has nothing to do with all the people that put the show together. So just an interesting thought about where the NBA will go. I think that they just want to see American players improving. And I think that over the however decade span, we've seen a lot of foreign players take over the NBA in a way. And I think that while it's unfortunate that that's going to bring up a bunch of goofy stuff that we already do, xenophobia, especially in America, I think that realistically, it's a great time for us to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, hey, this whole process of American basketball hasn't been studied correctly. People don't get it. Like the Michael Jordan of it all. The AAU situation, there's so much more than just one thing to blame. You know what I mean? This is a systematic issue, and it's not even that big of an issue because it creates amazing talent. We have some of the best talent in the world, but sometimes it's not being realized to its fullest potential. And I think that's the frustration, and I think that's the fun of seeing Nikola Jokic or Luka Doncic play their version of basketball, Victor Wembanyama as he grows. Is they are going to make American players understand that it has to be everything. I think LeBron put that into focus. I think guys like Durant have done that. Curry, obviously, but Curry and Durant kind of make up for different things, right? Curry makes up for being a very average-sized player for the NBA average-sized player. For his position, he makes up for a lot of that in various ways. Durant doesn't have the physicality of a great NBA player, but he's fucking 7 foot and can dribble like a guard, you know what I mean? Shoot like a guard. Like this is the skill level of some of our top tier guys unquestionable, and that's why I bring up LeBron, because I think LeBron's probably the best example of skill in the pure American athleticism mixing. And it's not been perfect for LeBron, but a lot of it's been, should he be less muscular to shoot better, or should he be that muscular to drive as much as he does? That's sort of the conversation that's always gone on. But with LeBron, he's adapted, he's had fun with it. He's it's been a bit of a change his whole career too, as he's discovered and played with it. So I do think it's not all doom and gloom for American players. I just think it's important that we don't cheat the system, we don't cheat the game. You hear that a lot. Guys like Giannis, I don't expect them to be superior skill players because of how big they are. But as good as you can get is amazing. I mean, but we don't talk like even Rudy Gobert. Like I like Rudy Gobert. He's a good player. He's a future Hall of Famer. But it's frustrating that his offense has just now, and maybe this has been the right system, whatever, is really just now at a level where I can trust him to play high-level basketball offensively, So it's not like everybody's perfect here. It's still going to be player to player. It's not going to be just America versus the world. It's just the way the world views basketball is kind of beautiful, in my opinion. It understands the team game in a way that isn't boring. You know what I mean? I grew up with the Spurs that were so damn boring. God love them. I mean, I love it, but they were boring. They had very vanilla players in the manner of the way they played basketball because they were just machines. Except for Manu, right? Manu was the kind of the exception to that rule, but they just played like a machine, and it was beautiful. But it's like German soccer. It wasn't exactly it wasn't exactly the thing the fans loved. It doesn't draw that. But with Nikola and Luka, they play a very sexy version of this. They play this. Well, Luka sometimes it gets a little. Let's highlight Nikola for now, as Luka still gets better about some of his things. With Nikola, you play such a beautiful brand of basketball with all of the flash and the lore of America, of that the American, what I think is truly the American touch to basketball. I know, we partially created this game. We definitely incubated it and turned it into what it is. But ultimately, I think that is our trait, is that flair, that artistic love of that flash. I think that's that's what's purely American, and that's where I love Nikola, where he can bring in this team aspect. He can be the most important player on the court without having to fill up the scoring line. At the same time, this man can do all of the stuff that we expect our superstars to do when we act like that, when we obsess over Michael Jordan's or LeBron James or Kobe Bryant's, that single great player, that Allen Iverson, So long story short, I just think that a lot of this is basketball as a whole community coming together, starting to learn from each other, getting better as a result. There's no signs of all-star rosters expanding. That's not a surprise, but it was interesting to hear him say it. He said that finite issues with minutes played is the biggest part of it. And I laughed at that because no, the biggest issue is money. You have to pay more guys more money if they make all-star teams every year. That's how the CBA works. We're not stupid. But, you can't say that. So he said the finite minutes thing, which I also want to know could be fixed by doing a tournament-like version of it with taking 5 all-stars and putting them against a team, another 5 all-stars, and doing a little mini tournament the way you just did the Rising Stars Challenge, or similar to that. So I added that because it was an interesting note, but ultimately that's just what Adam does. That's what he gets paid for. He also noted that the 65 games played rule, which was something I was going to monitor and discuss more, but it does feel like this has sort of died down. Like a few guys have gotten hit from it, but mostly it hasn't affected too much, especially since Joel might be out for a significant enough period of time where he might have missed those teams anyway, just because of how voters have done things in the past. But either way, 65 games played only impacts 3% of the players, is what he said, financially. And that's fine because they are harder to get into, but it still doesn't quite feel like it just feels like an interesting stance. It feels like, okay, the NBA says, well, we actually think the data backs up our decision to do 65 games, and you guys collectively bargained on it. So, boo-boo, stick your head in doo-doo. And the fact that at this point, is it what, Joel Embiid and Kyrie Irving are the two biggest snubs, or the two biggest ones? It was, what about Jimmy Butler maybe? So some significant names, but not necessarily names that wouldn't have missed any other year. Kyrie had a kind of bad start to the season before taking some time off to get his body right. And then since then, he's been amazing. Jimmy Butler has missed way more time than usual this season. So I think ultimately those guys might have already had issues with the regular, like the way the voters have done things in the past anyway. Now it's just sort of official. And that was pretty much Adam's conversation there. So not much of a quick hitter on that one, actually kind of long. Mitch Kupchak is going to step down as a Hornets GM after the season. This was expected, but it was interesting to see. And it was actually kind of announced before the trade deadline. But it was interesting to see how this all works. And if you don't know a lot about Mitch, Mitch was the Lakers GM for a while. Mitch is more important in history, but we'll just go to the executive side of his life. Mitch is a GM with the Lakers, helps put together the second half of the Kobe Shaq or the Kobe dynasty, I guess, with the Powell and Kobe era. Puts together that group. He also is a big part of the Lakers' downfall. Ends up getting hired by MJ once the Lakers let him go, and he's been in Charlotte ever since with, results. And so he's stepping down officially, which is great. The Hornets ownership has changed. Michael's still a part of it, but now it's primarily ran by two other men who I'm not exactly sure I know a lot of, but I've been seeing so much awesome stuff about how they reach out to some of these Hornet fans, how they have, they're actually talking to some of these guys who are online covering the sport similar to like I do. And I think that means a lot, especially in a place like Charlotte where there's real dedication to that franchise, love for basketball in the state, but really has not been rewarded at all. I mean, frankly, really at all. Like with one playoff appearance, two playoff appearances in the span of since the Bobcats returned, at least. So it's been very frustrating for the fans there. And it's nice to see them instantly being rewarded with this new ownership in a couple of ways. And Mitch Kupchak did a great job for this franchise by making some roster decisions that I think are helping them a lot. I think that you have PJ Washington leaving for Grant Williams. Maybe that's a talent play that, is what it is. You had to give up some picks, but you got something else in return. And I think Grant Williams is going to be one of those guys that's fun to have because he's a local guy. I think that helps with the thing. I don't know how great he is. It's a decent price that you have on him, and he can be there for a while. So not a negative there. And then obviously I think that Vasilije Micic might have been an absolute steal. Trey Mann as well. I mean, so the deals they were able to put together put real talent on this roster for whoever's going to take it over. Interesting names have been popping up. Not necessarily great names, but we'll see. Some assistant guys that obviously are proven enough for me to judge. But Elton Brand probably was the premier name. He's helping out in Philly. He was kind of the head in Philly, and then Morey got hired, and then now he's kind of like the second in command in Philly. But either way, Elton Brand is already shot that down. He re-signed with the Sixers around Christmas time or something like that, and then basically looks like he'll be taking over that franchise for the long haul, even if Morey stays, goes, whatever it is. Then we move on to a funny little situation that honestly is maybe a good sign of the times for the NBA. Beef Stew, Isaiah Stewart, got into another altercation. This time it was not anything we could have seen. He apparently was jawing with Drew Eubanks of the Phoenix Suns before a game and clocked him. Then people came out and started talking about how the punch wasn't so bad after. I don't know if that's maybe somebody trying to help him or if someone trying to help Eubanks, whatever it is. Those are just funny to come out. He was arrested, he was cited, and he was given a DNP for that game. That's pretty much it for the legal issues there. The NBA will likely come down at some point. Little surprised that they haven't at this juncture, but let me just double check myself on that because it is kind of wild. I mean, it's All-Star Weekend. I just don't understand. We don't have. Yeah, I mean, the last update is a few days ago, so this is pretty slow movement here, and it's pretty funny because I mean, anytime that NBA players fight, we end up having a national dialogue, and this one just went right through the fucking the stream because it just hasn't been recorded. Apparently, it was in an area that might have been under surveillance, but TMZ hasn't gotten the stuff, so it looks like we're good on this one. Not going to be a national story, although I really would like to implore Isaiah Stewart to reconsider the way he handles his business. It's starting to become more than a characteristic of his game. I think it's becoming something that he should be seriously considering when it's his salary he has. I mean, it's going to put you in a bad situation. These refs are such dicks. Go listen to Rasheed Wallace and the crap that they've done to him in his career. You don't want to play this game. I'm cool with the tough guy stuff. I'm glad that you're not a fake tough guy. If that makes you feel any better, I think the fake tough guy thing is worse. But at the end of the day, tough guy isn't. It's not what we're doing anymore. This isn't the '90s. If you're gonna be tough, do it on the rebounds. Don't jaw jack people in the parking lot. You know what I mean? It's not good for business. It's not good for the league. It's not good for you. It's not good for my cat over here trying to figure out where his mom is or where anything is. Gus, I'm in here, bro. Come hang out. Sorry about that. Phoenix Suns. They got a G League team, making them the last to do so. This team will start next season impressively. Matt Shiba was not messing around on that. Fans will vote on the team name. This is now completing the set. There will be 32 G League teams. I know you're probably thinking, hey, man, I'm kind of busy here. Look, you want to do it with me? We'll finish this together. All right. So the final team to complete the set, 32 teams. Look at this guy. 32 teams out of 30. We have 30 NBA teams. We have 32 G League teams. There's a Mexico City team and there's a G League Ignite, at least for now. And so we'll kind of see what that ends up doing moving forward. But this is important to note because now we have the whole G League system complete. We have everything perfect. Now we just sort of have to make this minor league system a little more effective, a little more efficient. I think that it's already getting there. I think that the talent and the gameplay isn't too bad. I think that there's still just decision making within players. I think there's how much you're keeping guys. Like I think that if there's guys that aren't that impactful to maybe the NBA prospects, that it would at least be nice for them to try to do something in the form of keeping your talented G League players in your market so that the fans can at least grow an attachment to these guys, even if they don't really have a shot at being with the big league team. Obviously, I hope this makes it easier for developing youth players now that we're going to be drafting more kids, probably going to be having a lot more development going on with the young guys when they come in because the rosters are a little full. It's a little bit hard to crack rotations as a youngster unless you're really at that elite level. So I think that it's a good thing for us to be sitting here and hopefully be talking about the G League as a real powerful entity moving forward. But either way, Matt Shiba, this was a long-term goal of his to get Phoenix to be there. Portland was the other team holding up, but the Portland G League team is about to finish its first season of play. What is it? Rip City. Something to do with the damn turntable and DJs because it's fucking Portland. All right. Future player movement rumors. We're just going to put this all in a bow. So we're getting rumors about bidders trying to draft LeBron James Jr. to lure LeBron. We're getting all kinds of conversations about Trae Young, which, to be fair, is getting very close to. And I'll give Bill Simmons the shout out here, who had the Paul George to the Lakers thing mapped out for years, right? Where he thought when Paul George was leaving Indiana that he was hell bent on going to the Lakers, and the only reason it didn't happen is because the tampering was so bad that the league had like a hush hush agreement that he had to go elsewhere and they had to look elsewhere, or else. It just would have been a bad look for the league, was his theory, right? Well, looks like we're getting it again because clutch client Trae Young it might be the next guy out, and all the rumors seem to say Lakers. I think the only other team I've seen rumored is the San Antonio Spurs. We're not even going to get into the speculation. The Athletic, The Ringer, ESPN, they're all shamelessly pushing these. If you're a Minnesota fan, you're going to hear about Karl Anthony Towns. It doesn't matter how good your team's is. It doesn't matter what the realistic possibilities things are. People are just at a point where they just need the clickbait, and we just don't know how to talk about basketball without player movement being involved. And so I just want you to know, if you're a fan of a team and if your player is going to get named in any story from here until at least the playoffs, just ignore it, because nobody knows what's going to happen until the playoffs are over, until teams have lost in bitter fashion, overachieved in glory. So it's one of those things where people are going to talk a lot of shit. They're going to try to speculate because player movement is important. LeBron potentially could be moving. And if you've never been around for a LeBron free agency sweepstakes, then you buckle up, Buster, because they're going to give you all of it. They're going to give you every piece of news, whether it be impactful or sourced, doesn't matter. Any little specks of breadcrumbs about what that man's going to do, they're going to try to give it out there to you because it is good for SEO. And that's also kind of why I brought it up. But anyway, I just wanted to give you guys a heads up because you're going to see a lot of those, and just don't worry about it. It's not useful. Let's tie this thing up. Put a bow on it. Buyout guys getting signed. Some of this doesn't matter. I know that there's there's some people like to comment a lot about how buyouts always overrated. I think the only time people really think they've worked out is like PJ Brown, but I feel like there's been somebody else. But either way, buyout guys can be super useful. It's a nice little way to add depth, especially for some of these teams I'm going to mention. Firstly, Jordan Goodwin getting a 10-day for the Grizz. I hope he gets to turn that into a full-year deal. I really don't think Jordan Goodwin should be on the fringes of the NBA. Maybe he just needs another offseason, get a good deal, and get real playing time. But I think he's an NBA player, at least a rotation guy. Should be here for a little bit before he needs to start maybe looking overseas for money or to finish his career, rather. Thad Young to the Suns. I think that's probably the biggest steal so far. I really like that. I really don't know how much he has left in his game, but they desperately need somebody at his position and someone with his size and expertise. So I think that's a nailed signing for the Suns. And DeLon Wright, who was kind of unexpected. Still a Wizard, wasn't really someone we knew was going to be on the buyout market, but then boom, bam, buyout market, Miami Heat, same notification. So I don't know how tampering works on buyout guys, but that was an interesting way to announce it. And like I said, when we talked about the injuries to start the show, they're going to need that point guard more than ever. And maybe DeLon Wright gives them a little bit more than what they've had in the past. Maybe he helps Terry Rozier a little bit as an auxiliary type. To me, he does sort of fit that Gabe Vincent mold. So I really don't hate it. I think that if anybody's going to turn this into a high value play, it's the freaking Miami Heat. I don't hate him. I'm just impressed. It's just impressive, man. Spo's great at it. That organization's great at it. And then to finish things off, Gus, you gonna help me here? Say, congratulations. All right, I'm gonna let him go because he's about to suicide bomb off my stool. All right. Massive congratulations to JA Adande. JA Adande is one of the sickest basketball minds has been around. This guy is somebody I've learned from my whole life, watching, reading. I think he's kind of toned it down in the last decade or so, or last half decade at least. So some of you guys may not be familiar. JA was a big part of big part of basketball journalism. He's going to be the newest Kurt Gowdy Basketball Hall of Famer. What all does JA do? So I know he's a part of Northwestern's college too. So I think that's actually why he stepped back from the public light, is he's actually been working for his alma mater. But basically JA was the premier Laker guy for a long time. The premier LA guy, would have been one of the guys most in attendance for the Shaq Kobe drama, and usually has some fun insights when it comes to that era of basketball. But yeah, I mean, as a kid growing up in the 2000s, obsessed with this nerdy game, there wasn't too many people doing it like JA, who you could tell were basketball first guys on ESPN, especially. And so I just always appreciated it. And it's always exciting to see the Kurt Gowdy Basketball Hall of Famers. It makes me feel old as hell, but it's like seeing the guys that you really kind of idolize in this thing get their shine. And so JA Adande, job well done, sir. And for my folks here, I appreciate you guys for another great episode. Kept it kind of short for you, but don't worry, we're going into tiers next week. Yes, I wrote down all my tiers. I've checked my list. I've done it twice. I think I'm confident to tell you where my tiers are and how I think that they're pretty accurate right now. I think that this is going to be a good marker for us heading into the final chapter of this season. To know where teams are, to be looking at teams that could maybe do a little rising, maybe a little falling. And then I think we'll probably save the playoff stuff, the breakdowns in that market. I think we'll probably go ahead and save that for the main show. And we'll kind of week to week, we'll give you an update on how things are going as far as the playoff standings, the play-in. And then, of course, we've got to be watching picks. This is the fun tanking time of the season where those protections start to matter a little bit more than they usually do. So all of that stuff we'll look forward to, hoop heads. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your All-Star break. Don't ingest any basketball unless you need to, because we got a lot